Years ago, I believed home was supposed to feel safe. I believed family was supposed to be the place where you could rest, where you didn't have to earn love, where your existence wasn't measured by how useful you were. For a long time, I kept trying to fit inside a space that never seemed built for me, and one day I finally stopped trying. My name is Rowan, and this is the story of how losing everything became the beginning of finding myself. I disappeared for a while. Not physically. I was still here, still breathing, still waking up every morning. But emotionally, I pulled away from everything. No calls, no messages, no explanations. Because after spending years feeling invisible, I was exhausted from asking people to see me. I rented a tiny apartment on the edge of town. Nothing special. A small kitchen, secondhand furniture, a window that looked out onto a parking lot. But for the first time in years, I had something I never had before: peace. At first, silence scared me. I had spent so much of my life surrounded by criticism, tension, and expectations that quiet felt unfamiliar. But slowly, silence became healing. I learned the sound of my own thoughts again. I learned what I liked. I learned who I was when I wasn't trying to survive. Meanwhile, life moved on without me. Photos appeared online, family celebrations, smiling faces, brunch tables covered in expensive plates and perfect lighting, captions about blessings, about family, about happiness. And for the first time, I looked at those pictures without feeling jealous, because I realized something. I wasn't missing a family. I was missing the idea of one, and ideas can keep you trapped longer than reality ever will. So I started rebuilding. Not dramatically. Quietly. I worked. I studied. I learned things nobody ever taught me before. I learned financial literacy. I learned contracts. I learned how to advocate for myself. I learned how to say no without apologizing afterward. And every tiny step felt like reclaiming something that had been taken from me years ago. Then one day, I walked into a community center. Honestly, I almost turned around. I wasn't looking for inspiration. I wasn't looking for purpose. I just saw a flyer outside. Women's Support Workshop. Open doors. Open stories. So I sat in the back, arms crossed, ready to leave. Then a woman stood at the front and said, "Sometimes surviving becomes such a habit that we forget we're allowed to live." And something inside me cracked open, not painfully, gently, like sunlight entering a room that's been closed for too long. After the meeting, I stayed behind. We talked, then I came back the next week, then the week after that. Eventually, they asked if I wanted to help. Just little things at first. Organizing chairs, greeting people, handing out notebooks, nothing huge. But then women started talking to me, really talking, sharing pieces of themselves, stories they never said out loud. And I realized something surprising. Every person sitting in that room thought they were alone, every single one. I started sharing parts of my own story too. Not the painful details, not the things that belonged in old wounds. I talked about rebuilding, about learning your worth, about finding your voice after years of shrinking yourself. People listened, really listened. For years, I had spent my life feeling unheard. Now people were leaning forward when I spoke. Months later, someone approached me after a workshop. She handed me a folded piece of paper. Inside were 5 words: "You helped me stay here." I stared at it for a long time, because all my life I'd believed strength meant enduring pain quietly. But maybe strength wasn't surviving silently. Maybe strength was reaching back and helping someone else stand. Opportunities started showing up in unexpected ways. A local magazine asked if I'd write an article, then another. Then a podcast invitation arrived. People wanted to hear about resilience, not because I had all the answers, but because I had walked through darkness and come back carrying light. I kept saying yes, not for attention, for connection, because somewhere, someone needed to hear that their story wasn't over. One afternoon, I got a phone call, an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. But I answered, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Then a familiar voice said my name, softly, carefully, like it hadn't been spoken in a while. There was regret there, sadness too, and maybe guilt. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for those things anymore. Because healing changes you. You stop needing people to become who you hoped they'd be. You stop waiting for apologies that arrive years too late. You stop building your future around someone else's choices. After the call ended, I sat by my window and watched rain slide down the glass. Years ago, I would have cried. I would have wondered what I did wrong. I would have blamed myself. Instead, I made tea, opened my laptop, and finished editing tomorrow's workshop notes, because my life wasn't paused anymore. Eventually, I stood on a stage, nothing huge, no bright lights, no dramatic music, just chairs filled with people carrying invisible battles, people searching for something, hope, answers, permission. I looked out into the crowd and smiled, because suddenly I saw her, not literally, but I saw the girl I used to be, the one who sat quietly, the one who believed being loved meant becoming smaller, the one who apologized for existing. I looked directly toward the back of the room and said, "If you've spent your whole life feeling unseen, hear me now. Being overlooked does not make you unimportant. Being underestimated does not make you small. And being hurt does not make you broken." The room was silent. Then people stood and clapped. But I wasn't listening to the applause. I was listening to something else. The quiet voice inside me that finally said, "You made it." Life didn't become perfect afterward. Healing isn't a finish line. There are still hard days, still memories that arrive unexpectedly, still moments when old fears whisper old lies. But they don't control me anymore, because now I know who I am. I'm not the version of me that was shaped by pain. I'm the version that grew beyond it. A few weeks later, I returned to the community center. A new girl sat alone in the corner, quiet, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on the floor. I recognized that posture immediately. I had worn it myself for years. I sat beside her. She looked nervous. Then she asked softly, "Does it ever stop hurting?" I thought for a moment, then smiled. "No," I said honestly, "but eventually, it stops being the end of your story." And today, when I look back, I don't think about what I lost. I think about what I found, my voice, my peace, my purpose. Because sometimes life doesn't fall apart to punish you. Sometimes it falls apart so you finally stop living inside spaces that were never meant for you. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from the people who taught you to feel small and build a life that reminds you just how much space you were always meant to take up.